It's not so much the beginning of a new era, it's more like the transition into the beginning of a new era. Welcome to the Time Treadmill. I'm Ron, and these are my sweaty thoughts about Doctor Who. Robot is easily the worst story of the Fourth Doctor era. And that's not a knock on the story. It's not a bad story. It's actually fairly good. But it also holds the precarious spot of being the transition episode between the Third Doctor and the Fourth Doctor. Now, changes like this are something that Doctor Who does very well. The transition from the First Doctor to the Second Doctor was surprising and seamless. Transition from 2 to 3 was a massive sea change in the entire structure of the program, and perfectly done, even if it took until really John Pertwee's second season to really settle in and have the entire production firing on all cylinders. Here, the change is at first glance more subtle, and yet massive. See, Robot was produced actually as part of a production block at the end of the previous series. In fact, to a large degree, Robot was being produced in parallel with Planet of the Spiders, to the point where poor Elizabeth Sladen was actually on some days shuttling back and forth between filming locations to do scenes on Metebelis 3 with the Third Doctor, and then driving back into the studio to do scenes in London with the Fourth Doctor and Harry Sullivan. And she was horribly overworked those couple of weeks. And so, of necessity, Robot, despite being the first story of the Fourth Doctor era, very much feels like a Third Doctor story. It was written by Terrance Dicks. It was produced by Barry Letts, who was outgoing as producer. Philip Hinchcliffe was just coming in, but he didn't really take the reins until the next story. And likewise, Robert Holmes takes over as script editor, but again has a very light hand on this script. And so, in many ways, this story feels written more for the Third Doctor than the Fourth Doctor, although Tom Baker absolutely puts his stamp on it. And that's really the key point here. It's a perfectly enjoyable story. Some of the CSO effects get kind of egregious in the second half, and I'll get that tomorrow. It also is not what you think of in hindsight a Fourth Doctor story. It just doesn't have that feel, and that's because the next story is really where we get the classic Holmes-Hinchcliffe kind of story. And case in point, Robot winds up being the last hurrah for a Unit story, although Unit will return next season in Terror of the Zygons in a reduced form. But that's basically it. Starting with the next story, the whole feel of the series changes. And that leaves us here in Robot with this just really weird kind of awkward feeling where a lot of it is story service to onboard the new Doctor, and he's a radically different Doctor than any that ever appeared before. And to his credit, Tom Baker hits the ground running and absolutely nails the character. You can see all of the classic notes of his performance on display right here. Maybe not with the same confidence that will build over the coming years, but it's all right here. And that's what makes this enjoyable to watch. Is it a great story? It's okay. But it's a really interesting moment in transition, and kind of strange to see it in that sort of straddling the divide between one era and the other, and that feeling of oddness, of not quite settling in yet. We'll get there. And that'll wrap it up for today. Tomorrow, I want to talk about the arrival of a major new character who showed up in today's episodes, but I'll get to him tomorrow. I'll see you then.